Okay, well, I come on here to say that for this little moment, we might do ourselves a little favor and we might take a break, another break from the Christmas and July stuff, just to kind of do a little something different. And I have sewn up and even stuffed several of these. This was probably the seventh one I made, and I'm working on the eighth one now. But what I want to tell you about these foxes that I've made from denim is that if you remember the story about the walruses I made that I featured on video, where the lady kind of donated all her mom's jeans and her denim shirts, and since the shirts were a rather thin blue denim that came in several different shades, different shirts in different shades of blue, I decided I'd mix those shades up, kind of like I've done here, used a light here, a medium here, and a dark here, and to make the different parts of the patterns of these foxes I'm working on. And I know that foxes are a real popular animal these days, so we just kind of go about the work just to sort of make them as they need to be. Now, I do want to also say that, like I mentioned before, the lady's mother had passed, and that was why she donated the stuff and had me kind of, make from it the stuffies that were for her children. And I've used other pieces of the jeans, and I've used the pockets to make the emoji pillows and things like that that I've done. But I'm going to kind of demonstrate something here. Like, what we have here is, this is the head of the fox and this is the body of the fox, and we're going to kind of place this head in here in its place and sort of kind of come along on this here. So we're going to kind of sew a line right about down the middle, and we're going to kind of do as much of this work as this one strand of thread allows, as much of the thread as it's big enough to do. And so I'd say we started in the middle of this little tab at the neck, so we will go just a little more further ways up and kind of try to work our way along this, take it so it's going to get a little bit further along to the work we shall need it to be. And then we'll see that this little fox is going to be one thing to us that's going to be of a very good trend. There was a certain young lady I had who kind of gave me the notion to make some foxes out of jeans and denim, and I told her I had already made some foxes out of wood. I've done a video on here before where I have shown how I did that, how I cut out the blanks and carved them from the cherry and the walnut and the Kentucky coffee tree. But this is one where I come along a little further and decided to come up with this pattern for which I could do it from the jeans. And with all the creatures I created, there were some that became copies of others and ended up kind of going in the books just like that. And the I can't remember what all I did to come up with these things, but would say that I do believe that whenever I was working on these, that the panda ended up turning into a pattern for a badger, and the badger into a skunk, and the skunk into a fox, probably some little ways like that. And or now I'm kind of remembering better, but what it was I made the badger pattern off the possum pattern. Then I believe that I made the fox off of the badger and the skunk off of that. So some of these I've already sewn up in ways, and you haven't really kind of seen all the ways I've put the work into these, but how it's coming along is very important for us to know, to see, to come about our work. So I've come back up to the starting point at the middle of the neck and gone a little ways up, a little bit further up the ear here, and with the popularity of animals these days, you know, sometimes foxes can kind of make me think of that old story in the Bible about the way that Samson kind of ruined the Philistines' field. He took a bunch of foxes and tied fiery torches to their tails and sent them running through the field, and they caught the field on fire. I've always heard these little stories like that, just how they work and how they go. You know, there's been a lot of interesting stories about lions, foxes, hyenas, jackals, all kinds of creatures in the Bible. We know that even in Africa and Asia, they kind of have their own kinds of foxes there. We have our own kind here in America too. So as for the little work that comes along this way, we kind of tend to sew along and finally just come down to where the pattern is decent for us to know, see where it's going to lead. I say this little work here shall be done in its very own way. I say that, like, one thing, that when the teacher of the law came to Jesus and said, "I will follow you everywhere you go," he said, "Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Sometimes, you know, it's like it's always been said in the Word that there's a cost to following Jesus. Each of us has to pay it. And he says in the Word, you must take up your cross and follow me. I'd say the work comes along, finally got it in here, and finally we're going to make the last little tie of the needle in here. I say, as of what's next, we're going to kind of make ourselves a new little strand of thread here and go to the other side. There's also a little head to the other side of the head to sew on the other side of the body before we sew all the pieces here together and work, work, work. I say it's just been a time when there's been a lot going on with my school cafeteria job. Most people have kind of commented on how I've stated in recent videos that be transferring to another one next year. So this little time we're taking to make things a little ways sometimes, and and we always kind of learn as we grow older. Some of the stuff that was like little fantasies to us when we were so much younger, it becomes more vain as we grow older. It used to get me excited when people on the internet noticed my music and noticed my art and would become my internet friends, and we'd chat and correspond and talk a little, but kind of learn the older you get. There were times in my life thought I wanted to be a celebrity when I was younger. Sometimes I didn't always realize just how much work that could actually be, how hard it could be, and sometimes you also come to realize that none of us are happy with what we have in life. I've learned that middle class people want to be rich. Sometimes rich people aren't happy because somebody has more than they do, and common people want to be celebrities, and celebrities aren't happy because they can't live personal lives. And so there's just so much we kind of see in life as to how things will go from one place to the next. I'd say for me, even if I didn't get a lot of followers, it would be good enough, because the fact of the matter is, I probably had a little share of fame back in 2006. I had a little account on MySpace back in those days, and couldn't tell you all the details of everything I ever posted, but just do want to say that I brought some trouble upon myself with that account. You know, sometimes I'd say that some of the things I had posted on there were very quirky and bizarre and strange, and probably the kind of thing that you draw negative attention to yourself when you do online and on the internet, and didn't really realize it at the time. Was probably just kind of trying to put stuff out there to acquaint people with, help people understand Asperger's, and share with them my music. But you know, little things came along that way, and somebody decided to ridicule my page one day, and there was this website called somethingawful.com, and somebody on that website called somethingawful.com decided that they were going to take my profile, and they shared the link to it, shared my picture. Some of what they said in the article just may have been true according to the profile, but they just kind of said it in a fun-making and ridiculing kind of way, and it just kind of was one of those things where, you know, a lot of negative attention came to me. I ended up getting a lot of negative messages, a lot of strange friend requests, negative comments, and sometimes it just got to the point where couldn't stay on there much longer, and eventually just had to just shut everything down, because sometimes, just sometimes, you realize that there are things in life that just aren't the best things for you. You know, there were kind of a lot of strangers on there. Strangers can kind of upset you and do all kinds of strange, weird, and bizarre things. Sometimes I felt like I couldn't take it anymore, and not too long after that ended up deciding to completely delete my profile. It might have been a cost. Might have been at the cost of my of getting more attention for the music I was putting out there. But I never was a professional musician, never could really make money off of it. That was why I distributed it like I did, and it was just a little thing where, you know, for all I put out there, of course I had MP3s in other countries and things like that, and had people around the world downloading it and listening to it, reading my blogs about Asperger's and things like that. And you know, it just could very well be that just because of the way my own brain worked and the way I was able to think of things, and because of my own quirks and different ways of thinking I had, I might have posted some of the stuff I did. But it wasn't all good in the end. Didn't have a good outcome, to say the least. Wasn't all worth it. Wasn't all worth it. I say that we're about to finish sewing this side of the head onto this side of the body, and we are finally going to make a place where we're going to tie the knot right in place. And then there's little things we got to do next. It's unfortunate I didn't bring my, well, actually, now that I see it, I've got knitting needles over here. I keep them in this corner. I bought a whole bunch of them because with my ADHD, I just kind of drop them in random places and forget where I laid them, and it's just kind of hard to keep up with them that way. So I just kind of have to save many more, just like how I did. I went on Etsy and bought like a whole bunch of them. Can't remember how many the count was, but realized it just so happened that I purchased a whole bunch because I just needed to have enough to keep around, because of the fact that, like with me, that's how it is. I lay things in random places and forget where I put them, and sometimes, they get lost, so have to keep things up just to kind of remember where they were. And this is what we do. We bring the ear out like this. And so we're going to do the same with this other little one as well. Kind of turn the ear out and make it so it's going to come out great on the other side. Make it so the fox is going to stand out. And I will also just kind of mention a little thing or two about the thread. I tell you that, don't know where I put that spool this time. Apparently it's disappeared to somewhere. Probably fell off into the floor or something, but we're going to kind of try to take care of this as we go. I say that one thing I do want to mention is that if I can find it, I can show something and just show you all a little more as to how this has worked. You see this little type of denim colored thread that you can get at Joann Fabric. I mean, it's like this little thing that it does, sometimes depending on what all different kinds of colors you use, sometimes other colors will be necessary, but given the fact that it's kind of in a little shade that is kind of like all the colors that all these different figures are here, we can kind of like do the whole fox with just this shade. I tell you, I wish that that spool had not disappeared, because one of these days I'm going to end up having to stop this video to kind of see to find it, wherever it rolled off to. And that's what they do. They kind of roll off in public places too. When I take my sewing stuff out to the public places, they kind of roll off into places and disappear. And one time I was at Starbucks and it rolled under a chair I was in, and sure enough, I kind of came back and looked under the chair and saw it right there. But that's just how these little spools work. They just kind of go off different ways, different directions. And so I say with this, we've kind of sewn the little place here, and with this thread being all the color it is, we can go a little bit both ways about this. We've already made the knot to make the attachment here, and kind of got to sew the rest of the way here to make the rest of this thread go along, and sometimes like make it so it's going to find its way through here, and then we see how it's going to come the same way when we do the same work again. And then we're going to kind of take it a little further and work our way into the front of the head, go a little more towards the nose and to the forehead, that is, and take the line a little further. And you know, you might have to do it differently if you had different shades of denim between the body and the head and had to use a different shade for the head. But this is how it's going to work for this time around, and then see how we're going to take it to the next level, and then finally get down to where we get along the back of this thing and take the little lines so much further to the point that we get a little bit more down the back, and see how this is going to turn out in the end. And so we've kind of accomplished a little something here with the best step we could take here. I think I've probably made it long enough for one video, so I think I'm going to just about end it right here, and see you in the next one. Hopefully find that spool by the next one and go a little further. Goodbye.